Take you back down to Cape Town now, where Tumelo is standing by to unpack a little bit more for us what exactly was spoken about and what was focused on in the State of the Nation address last night. Hello again to you, Tumza. And when we say focused on and spoke about, there's a lot. There is a lot the president had to deal with. One of those that so many people spoke about is education, the state of it before COVID and how worse it was during COVID.
Absolutely, Gareth. And we saw, the consequences of the pandemic, of COVID-19 on school infrastructure. We saw that rotational scheduling that, young people had to adhere to, the 1.5 meter social distancing. We saw the impact of some who could not even come back to school due to COVID-19, that dropout rate also affecting young peoples there. But I'm joined now from Equal Education by Jane Borman. Jane, thank you so much for your time and good morning to you.
Thanks for having me.
I suppose to start here, your reaction to, the President's State of the Nation address, particularly on education?
Well, I think overall, the question really will be how this plan is implemented. Obviously, we welcome the fact that school infrastructure was again brought up as an issue and as an important issue in SONA. However, we've seen this in previous years, and I guess that we're also waiting to see how much money is allocated to it in the budget. So overall, the words were good, but we have to see what happens next.
What would you have liked to hear more, just in terms of implementation, the direction with which government was taking, particularly with education?
Well, I think that a big issue that we found is that the school infrastructure delivery model, so that's like the procurement and the contracts, there's a lot of issues in how it's rolled out, issues of corruption. Now, a new model is obviously fantastic, a new plan is fantastic, but if the key players in this sort of delivery chain are not, are not properly managed, are not properly sort of vetted,
right,
then we'll just have the same problems that we had previously. So there's a lot of issue with a new model is fantastic, but we need to address some sort of foundational issues.
Yeah. Also speaking about, dropout, I mentioned earlier on in my intro that in an Equal Education does a great job in tracking down, the problems around dropout rates within South Africa. How do you think the president can address that? Because it's all in well to focus on school books and stationery and infrastructure, but where are the pupils to occupy these schools?
So I think a big issue is that school dropouts often result from broad learner engagement. It's not a one-event situation. So what you'll have is that learners obviously might come from backgrounds where in their communities and in their families they face hardship, and then they arrive at school and they're faced with schools that don't have proper infrastructure, that they don't have proper support systems like feeding schemes or psychosocial support, and so schooling becomes a very difficult endeavor. And so what we need to actually see is a holistic approach to schooling, and to make sure that all of the dropout and school infrastructure are linked. Resources are linked, transport is linked, and so we actually need to see a holistic investment in the school system in order to address dropouts.
Absolutely. There was also concern with the brief time that the president touched on education. Some saying they would have liked to hear more from the president, going in depth with the issues within the education sector, because should you not, cover all mechanisms in school, you find the very same pupils either dropping out, some, turning to other, criminal activities to sort of subsidize where they lack perhaps in their foundation phases. And I suppose my question to you is, did you see the same in terms of the amount of time the president touched on education? Did he cover all aspects that the country needed to hear from him?
Well, I think that obviously at Equal Education, we believe that basic education is the foundation for building the sort of society that we as South Africans all imagine and all want. And in terms of that, no, there wasn't sufficient time given. If we can't get our basic education system right, the ripple effects across the whole of society are so large. So it's all good and well to talk about, borders and wanting to transport goods effectively, but if we don't make sure that we invest in the people of South Africa, in the children of South Africa, then that impact has a knock-on effect for everything. So no, we don't feel it was sort of given enough attention.
I suppose my last question to you then, Jane, again, has to do with some of the criminal activities we've seen in school. For example, the deputy principal in Tembisa who was shot dead just outside of school. We've also heard of, some pupils being stabbed while in school. What are your concerns with this, seeing that children's or pupils' lives are in danger while in school?
Well, again, schools, unfortunately, are not islands. Learners go to school often in the communities in which they grow up in. If there's poverty and crime in that community, it's going to spill over into the schooling environment. I mean, I think that obviously that shows that, you know, schooling is such a foundational issue, but we also need to address not just the actual learning, but the environment in which learners have to learn in, and that includes the community. So in order to have that sort of broad, holistic approach, we also need to make sure that we're ensuring a safe learning environment, and that, you know, means dealing with the communities as well.
Yeah. We'll have to leave it then. Appreciate your time, Jim Borman from Equal Education, talking to us there, Gareth, about, you know, the State of the Nation address and what the President had to say with regards to education. We know there's a special delivery vehicle the President made mention of, saying that it will look into school infrastructure. It's being piloted in the Eastern Cape and the Northern Cape at this moment. Feedback will be given on its success. And I suppose we'll have to wait and see whether implementation will be the key word for government this year.
Yeah, once again, using the word implementation, not just you, Tumza, but everyone off the back of last night. Lots of plans, drawing lines in the sand, 100-day plans, etc., but all about the implementation. Looking beautiful in Cape Town this morning as well. We'll go back to you, Tumelo Motatwane, a little bit later.